Hi, Kitchen Kings and Queens. Okay, today we are going to make a little gift for a friend of mine, Bobby. She loves Walker's shortbread, so I'm going to make her some shortbread for us to share for our little tea at work. Okay, so I have a pound of butter, and you want to use the highest quality butter that you can find. So, since it's a British Isles dish, I'm using Irish butter, curry gold, and this is unsalted butter. Okay, so that's the kind of butter that you want to use. Okay, and I'm not going to throw this away. I'm going to use it to grease the pan here, which is a Nordic ware pan for shortbread. Okay, so I'm just greasing it with the residual butter on this wrapper. Okay, and this is a great way for you to make sure you don't waste anything, but also to make sure that you get all of the butter off of the container, and also to make sure that you don't waste any of this really good butter. Okay, because this is expensive, but it's worth it because it's a delicious, very rich butter, and it will give the right taste to this cookie. And it's a very simple cookie. It's a very simple ingredient list. There are 4 ingredients. If you use unsalted butter or salted butter, it would only be 3 ingredients. But I'm using unsalted butter because it gives you better control over the butter or the salt content, because salted butter varies in amount of salt. Okay, so I'm using something called the Oster Kitchen Center, and I'm going to blend this butter, and then we'll talk about that. Okay, so for creaming, it has to go to setting number 4, which I have set up there. Okay, so this is it's a multi-appliance. Okay, so it's a mixer, it is a blender, it is a food processor, it's an ice cream maker, and it can do all of those things, and it does them all really well. Okay, so the butter is beaded, it's very soft. Okay, so I'm going to add in a half a cup of sugar to add to that. And we're going to cream that together. Now, this mixer uses a different method of mixing than what you may be familiar with the KitchenAid. So that mixer uses planetary mixing, which means that it moves both this way, and then within the beater it moves in a circle as well, so like a planet. Okay, so this has this open area, so it allows you to kind of manipulate the ingredients a little bit differently. Okay, so instead of worrying about using the mixer, doing it all on its own, you can control the bowl here, and you can bring the ingredients back and forth into the beater. Okay, and that really can be helpful. And this is the old method of stand mixing. Okay, so most stand mixers like Sunbeam and Hamilton Beach and the lakes, they all used this methodology. Okay? So that's pretty well mixed. I'm going to preheat the oven to 325. Okay, so that way it's ready to rock and roll. Okay, so now we're going to add the salt, and we're going to add little by little the flour. So we're going to add it at like a third to a half at a time. So that was a half a teaspoon of salt, and we put that off to the side here. And we have 2 cups of flour here. Okay, so I'm going to add that in there. Okay, and we're going to do it kind of a little bit at a time. Okay, and again, you can use your spatula here and just kind of move it into the mixer blades. And I think we're good there. So we're gonna take that off. And we're gonna add the rest of our flour, okay? So that was like about a cup that we added. So now we're gonna add the other cup. And we want to make sure that we are incorporating all of the flour and butter. Okay? And it becomes like a very supple dough here. Okay? And you can see this mixer, it doesn't seem like it's a very powerful mixer, but this is a very powerful mixer. I'll go over this Oster Kitchen Center and some of the features while we're waiting. But it has a very powerful motor, okay? It has a 450 watt motor. To put that into perspective, the only mixer that has a more powerful motor is this one, which is the 6-quart stand mixer from KitchenAid. Okay, so I'm actually going to turn this down, and I'm going to turn this on. Okay, so it's a very powerful mixer, a surprisingly powerful mixer. And what you can do is you can see how I'm like pulling against the mixer. That will allow the beaters to kind of clean themselves off. Okay? And we are done here. Okay? So this is a very, as you can see, it's a very simple recipe. Oh man, I preemptively added my spatula to the sink, so we'll just make some more dishes. Okay, so it's a very nice supple dough here. Okay, so we want to make sure we get it all off of the mixer here. And then we're going to put it into our mold. Okay? And this is a very interesting cookie. When I take it out of the oven, you're gonna think, oh my gosh, that cookie's not even baked. That's what shortbread looks like. Okay? It has a very light bake that you use to make it. Okay, so I'm going to take all this off. I don't want to waste anything. if you know. So the main country associated with shortbread, now there's Irish shortbread, there's British shortbread, but the country that it's most known for is Scotland. Okay? And if anyone knows anything about Scots, they are known for their thriftiness. So a good Scot would make sure that we got all of our butter off of this, since we use such high quality butter. And notice I said thrifty, okay? So they have very admirable qualities of being thrifty. You know me, I like to save money and not waste anything. So that's a very valued quality of the Scots. I was going to go to Scotland a couple years ago, but I wound up keeping in Germany and then going to Austria and Hungary. So my next trip, when I go to England and Ireland, I'm definitely going to go to Scotland because I have heard that it is really beautiful. My neighbor next door is from England, and he, when I was talking about going to England, he said you have to go to Scotland. He said it's incredible. So he said the people are really nice, and the culture is just like a really fun, relaxed culture. It looks like it's very much up my alley in terms of being very natural and lots of beautiful outdoors. A lot of people go there for outdoor tourism, so it's definitely somewhere that I think I would really enjoy. Okay, so I'm gonna actually move this out of the way. I'm gonna switch now to our pan here. Okay, and we're just going to get the dough into the pan, and then we're going to press it down. Okay, so this is it's very much about using the finest ingredients. Okay, so that's why I used the best butter that I could find, and it really will make a difference in this cookie because that's all it is. The butter is the star of this. Okay, the sugar is just kind of highlights that that butteriness, and then the flour is just kind of to hold it all together. Okay, so we're gonna start by pressing this down into the pan, and then we're gonna have to smooth it out. Okay, the key to this is having a really smooth, even surface. Okay, that way everything can bake. So you kind of have to spread it into the grooves of this pan, and then we can press it down. Okay. I think we're done with this spoon here. Now we need to switch to get some parchment, and I just so happen to have this piece of parchment here. Okay, and we're just gonna kind of use it to press this down. keeping it in the borders here so that we can keep it as even as possible. Okay. And make sure you get it all into the grooves. Okay. And this is a really nice, it's really a nice idea of gift giving. So, you know, everyone likes homemade gifts, I think. I think in this day and age, everyone has so much stuff, but somebody taking the time to make something for you is really special, and I think it says a lot about your friendship when you make something for somebody, especially when it's something that you know they like and something that you know they appreciate. Like when I found out how much Bobby enjoyed this cookie, I was like, you know what? I wonder if I could find a recipe to make this and how easy it would be. So that's what I did. I found a couple recipes and I put them together to make sure that it came out with the features that she and I like, and hopefully it's a treat that we'll both enjoy, and our friend Nicole. So Nicole is very funny. She'll come by the room and she'll be like, "Is the tea on?" That's her trademark. So whenever she comes by, we have to make sure that we have the tea kettle on. So that's really a fun, we're a fun group. And in fact, Nicole, actually, I got her this Oster Kitchen Center because she saw it. I use it in my cooking club at school, and she loved it. And I found one at the thrift store, and it was on sale, half off. It had all the parts, and I was like, I gotta get this for her. So I did, and she loves it, and I think we may actually do a little episode together because she's kind of hesitant to start using it because, you know, there's a lot of parts to it. So I told her, I said, well, you should come and do an episode with me and we'll make some stuff. And she is a lot of fun, so I think my viewers will really enjoy her energy and her enthusiasm. And then her husband is Puerto Rican, so she makes amazing Puerto Rican food. So I think we'll do a little episode of this, and then hopefully she'll give us some of her Puerto Rican cuisine secrets. Okay, so it looks like everything is nice and flat as we're gonna get it. And I'm gonna try and clean off these sides a little bit. I just want to make sure that the sides are cleaned off. And then we're ready to put this in the oven. So we're going to put it in for about 20 minutes, and then we're going to take it out and we're going to cut it, and then we're going to bake it for just a little bit longer. Okay, so we'll put that in for 20 minutes, and then we'll be back. Okay, bye Kitchen Kings and Queens. Kitchen Kings and Queens. The shortbread is still baking, but I'm going to take this opportunity to introduce you to my lovely Oster kitchen center. Okay, this is a really innovative appliance, and I'm going to do a whole episode about this class of appliances. Okay, it's very similar to, in a couple ways, to our good friend Oster and Emmy, which is downstairs. Okay, so those appliances were kind of used as like multi appliances, and they were really geared towards space limited. This is not, I wouldn't say a space limited, but it's a multi-function appliance, okay? So this is the smaller bowl, okay? This is the larger bowl. And then I'm going to show you that there's two sets of beaters, okay? So there's the ones that we used, which are just your regular old mixer beaters. This other set of beaters is the dough hooks, okay? So they can also be used to make bread. And these are very heavy stainless steel dough hooks, okay? They are, to give you a comparison, this is the dough hook for the big KitchenAid mixer, okay? These are more twisted, there's two of them. They really do a great job of kneading, and they do it like a more quicker knead than this one. Okay, this one you really have to do it on a low speed, and you have to be kind of, you know, giving it its time to knead so that it does that work for you. This one kneads very quickly. You will get a very smooth, clean dough with this mixer in a lot quicker of a time. You'll get equally good mixing there, but that one's going to take you some time. These dough hooks and the power of this mixer and the fact that there's two mixing arms to this really makes it a little bit quicker than your traditional KitchenAid. Okay, so that's the mixer function. Okay, that's just one of the things that this can do. Okay, so that's the mixer arm, and there's this jagged gear that connects in here with the gear, and that gear has a pole in the middle. The pole is for this attachment, which is the blender. Okay, and this is what Oster is known for. They were at the time the gold standard of blenders. So they were like the Vitamix. Now Vitamix was around, but they weren't as prevalent in the home kitchen. They were like a real focused on like juice, whole food juicing, and they just kind of were marketing not really as a blender, more as a like a whole food nutritional system. Okay, so the gold standard of blender was Oster. Okay, and this blender was incredible. Okay, it's very good. This blender is actually fitted with a very unique blade. It's maybe hard for you to see. This is a newer blade. So Oster still makes blenders. I don't know that I would call them as high quality as they used to be, but they still do make blenders. They're not quite the same quality that they used to be. But they do make attachments, and this attachment fits and works with this mixer. So this attachment is for making malts and milkshakes, okay? So it's specifically designed for that. And that's the great thing about Oster. You can just take off the bottom. I mean, this is pretty common of blenders. But you can't do that with the Vitamix. It's fixed. But you can with Oster. So you can switch it out, and you could even use different containers. So they came up with some other container options. Okay, so this is the traditional blade. This is the one for the milkshakes. Okay, so it's got kind of like a wavy thing. But you can then switch it to different size containers. So if you were making like an herb mixture or chopped garlic or coffee, this was actually marketed as a coffee grinder. Okay, so you just put that in, and then you put this little mini container, what they call it, mini blend container, and you put that on, and there you go. You have all the power of the main Oster blender in a little smaller format. And they actually made one that was a little bit bigger than this. It was kind of in between the two of these, which is like a liter size. And somewhere I think I have one of those. That one I may not have one of, but I know I have more of these little mini blend, because this lid here allowed you to then take this and store it in the refrigerator. And it's even got like a little handle. You could store your coffee in it. So if you're grinding the fresh coffee, let's see. Yeah, let's grind some coffee. Okay, I'll show you how this thing works. So you take a little coffee, pop it in there. Put on your lid, and I'm going to put it on grind, which is, and this is good for the pulsing feature. So in addition to the on and off switch, you also have a pulsing feature. So that's really good if you're grinding coffee, so you can get the right grind. And a pulse feature is really good for coffee grinding, because it allows the coffee to come up and then come down. Okay? Give it a little shake. And I have some nice fresh coffee for breakfast tomorrow. Okay, so this was actually marketed as this little container. It was marketed in a separate pack-up for coffee grinding. Okay, so then instead of my coffee getting all stale, I can just put it in this airtight container, and it's ready for tomorrow. Okay, so that's one of those are the blender functions. Okay, but wait, there's more. I feel like I'm in an infomercial. Okay, then it came with this, and these are all standard standard components. They came in the box with this unit. Okay, so you got the blender, lid and the blade. You got the mixer bowl, the large one. and the small one, and they had glass ones. This would come with the glass. These were an upgrade for the stainless steel ones, but they're good because the glass ones did break or chip. So this was a great option to have these stainless steel ones, and I found them, so I got them. I also have the glass ones, and when I do the video, I'll show you that. But this was really a great feature, okay, because this would then allow you to use this as what's called a continuous feed food processor. And what a continuous feed food processor is, if you think about this traditional food processor, okay, and this one's great because it's got 3 different size bowls. But even if I use the largest one, and that's a 14 cup food processor, is the largest, no, this is 16 cups, I'm sorry. That's the largest food processor available in the residential market. Okay, so that's a huge food processor. But that gets filled up. This food processor, you never have that problem, because all you have to do is empty your bowl and you can go again. Okay, so this will shoot out as much as you push through it. Okay, and these are the blades that it came with. Okay, it came with this great rack, some of them, and these are the blades that it came with. The blades came in different ones. So, okay, some of them were the plastic with the metal blades, and then those were kind of the later ones. The earlier ones were all stainless steel. So the standard blades that came with it, you have a thin slicing disc, you have a thick slicing disc, you have a shredder disc, okay, and then you've got the French fry disc, okay, and the French fry disc was not just for French fry. You can dice with this, okay? So you can run something through, like a carrot, and it will julienne with this blade. Then you can run the julienne through, and then it will dice it for you. Okay, so with a little bit of know-how, you can make that into a dicing blade. Okay? And then this food processor, excuse me, had this really cool pusher system. Okay, so all food processors come with this one, okay, just the one that fills in there. This one in there are these, this is the large one, this is the small one, and this is the medium one. So you could leave the small one in there, and something larger like a cucumber you could put in there and push that down with the medium. With this one, you leave the medium in there, and you can put something small like a carrot through on that one, okay? And then they nest in the big one, so if you're doing something large, like a big piece of cheese, then you would use that together, okay? And it's really great, okay? So this is the grating speed. So you would take your food, you'd put it through, press it down, and then underneath, and I'll show you that, underneath that is the slinging disc, okay? So this disc goes underneath, and that shoots out the food through the chute into the bowl or whatever container you're using. Okay. So that's the food processor attachment. But wait, there's more, and I don't have it readily available, but I do have it. Okay. So if you take this mixer arm and you turn it around, you may notice here there's a little hole. That can host a whole host of other appliances. The one that came with it was the grinder attachment. Okay, so there was a food grinder that had a fine and a wide disc, and that would allow you to grind meats and vegetables and food and bread, and it would go right into here, same as with the food processor. Okay, you could also do it the other way around, and you could put the bowl on the counter. Okay, it wouldn't work for me here, but it would for if it was on the counter. Okay, so I'm going to pause here, and we're going to take a look at our shortbread, which smells incredible. Okay, so we're going to take that out. Okay, and you can see it's set, but it's still pale. Okay, and I'm going to just put that back in for another 8 minutes. Okay, and then we're going to take it out, and then we're going to let it rest, and then we're going to flip it, and then we're going to cut it. Okay, so I just wanted to take this out and show you where we're at. Notice it didn't have really a change in color. It was pretty much the same color. Okay, so back to Oster kitchen setup. So this can hold, oh my goodness, okay. That was not pleasant. Okay, so back to this hub here. This is very similar to this hub on the KitchenAid mixer. Okay, so it can even hold very similar attachments. Okay, so some of the attachments that it could hold were the meat grinder. That's a common appliance attachment for KitchenAid. It can also hold a pasta attachment that went with the meat grinder. So it was a series of plates that would go into the meat grinder and it would push it out, and you can make all sorts of pastas from those discs. There was a strainer, like a food strainer. If you remember when we did the tomato passata, what we ran that through, there's an attachment like that that can go here. So it would go, the comb would go out just like that one, and it would just run the puree of the tomato or whatever soft vegetable into the bowl. Okay, so that was another attachment. There's an ice crusher. Oh, the ice crusher goes on here. The other one that goes on here, there's a cone, slicer shredder cone system that you can use. So similar to the food processor blades, but it's like a cone. So if you've ever seen something called a salad master, it's similar to that. Those, I think, are the only appliances that use that hub. But that's not it for the wonders of the kitchen center. Okay, there was a whole host of other attachments that go on here. So, in addition to the mixer arm and the blender and the food processor, there was also a whole fruit juicer. So more of like a, oh, what's that brand? Like a Acme juicer, like a Jack LaLanne juicer. So like a cyclonic centrifuge juicer. There was one like that. There is a mini chopper, so similar to this. It's about the same size as this chopper with the Oster or Oster, and it would just sit right on there. And that was great because that attachment would also go, if you had an Oster blender, it would work on there too. So it turned people's blenders, all these attachments could be used if they weren't specific, like the mixer arm and the food processor, they were specific to this unit. So they used this larger gear in there for the power. But if they use the blender form, then they could be used in other Oster appliances. So you can use just an Osterizer blender, you could use the food processor attachment for it. So it opened up, even if you didn't have this, it started opening up other gadgets or attachments that you could use for your other Oster appliances. Oster also made, and I have one, it's called a salad maker, and it was basically this as a standalone unit. So they also made all this stuff as standalone units. There was an ice crusher. I have the ice crusher as a standalone unit, but I don't have the ice crusher attachment. I have the citrus press as a separate attachment, but they made an attachment on here. So you would have the spout of the citrus press, and you can use a bowl just like this. So you would be able to press all the citrus. They also came out with some additional blades. So I have two of them. I think there's one that I don't have, but there are two additional cutting blades. There's what's called the chunky blade, which was basically just a thicker slicing blade. So like a very thick slicing blade. I said it's probably like a 6mm slicing blade. And then that was to give you an even thicker slice. And then they also had what was called the crinkle. And this was like a decorative fluted edge to make like fluted cuts. So you had all these really awesome additional attachments. And then they came out with an ice cream machine. So there was a unit that sits on here, and it had a plastic body, and then in that there was an aluminum cylinder and space around it. So you put the ice in there, the paddle goes into the aluminum cylinder. There's a lid that goes on there, and then there's the lid that goes on the plastic container would hold the paddle, and then the motor would spin the cylinder around the motor. So it's a really good ice cream maker. And I have that attachment as well. So when I do the show, I'm going to showcase all of the attachments, and then we're going to do follow-up episodes where we do use each of the attachments. Some will use a couple, some will use just one, like the ice cream one. Although the ice cream one, you can use the blender to make a puree, and then you can add that to your ice cream. Okay, so this thing really was a pretty cool tool. Okay, so I'm going to take out our shortbread here. Okay, and as you can see, the only coloration is just on the edges. It's getting ever so brown. Okay, so that's what we're going to leave this at. And I'm going to take this out and I'm going to leave it on to cool on that rack in the pan. Then we'll turn it out and then we're going to cut it and then let it fully cool. Okay, so that is how to make shortbread. And hopefully you are inspired by the Oster Kitchen Center because it's a really cool appliance. And they made an updated, more modern version called the Designer, where they just livened it up a little bit, freshened it up, because from like 1979 till 1990, this was pretty much the standard design. It changed a little bit, it changed the color, it got more of like a cream color as opposed to the golden color that this is. So they contemporized that. They contemporized the control system. So here it's got kind of like a analog colored knob. They did make that a little bit more updated and just kind of had settings across the knob instead of that little area. So they did slightly change it, but the Designer version was the real update to the look of it. And it uses different beaters, it uses like a different, the bottom here is a little bit different, it fits in a little bit differently. So that was their big design change. And they had really Graham Kerr, who's a British chef. He did a whole infomercial on selling it. They started marketing it as for healthy living and low calorie cooking. So and the recipes are really good. We'll go over the cookbook and look at some of the recipes, but they had some really talented chefs to prepare the recipes for this cookbook and to use this machine. So this was really, the recipes are really impressive. So this was like a pretty well-received appliance. As you can imagine, it was super cool. There wasn't really anything out there like that. The KitchenAid mixer was a real luxury. I mean, not everyone had it. It wasn't mass marketed. It was really like a very professional, or like a very, it wasn't like the way it is now as like a kitchen fixture almost. So this was really a game changer, and there were some other predecessors, and there were some things that kind of followed along in their footsteps. So prior to this, there were built-in kitchen centers. The big company that made them was Newtone, which made kitchen fans and intercoms and doorbells, and they had all manner of really innovative appliances and home systems. So they came out with something called the Newtone Food Center, and that was built into, it was basically the motor. So imagine this part of the system they had built into the countertop. And there was a knob and there was a hub that you would put all these attachments. And they had a lot of very similar attachments to what the Oster Kitchen Center had. They also was another company called Ronson, and theirs was called the Foodmatic. I have both of these, and I'm gonna try and hook them up to show during that episode. But there was another big competitor to Oster called Sunbeam, and Sunbeam developed their own version of the kitchen center, and that was really had some additionally unique features, so we'll look at them and compare them. But Oster dominated this realm because they took what Newtone and Ronson did and they brought it to the masses. Because those systems that were built in, first of all, you had to make sure you bought it while you were remodeling your kitchen. So who was doing that? People didn't remodel their kitchens the way they did now. So that was really something that people would put in when they custom built a house. So it was a very expensive purchase. The Ronson one was even more unique, and that one was made in New Jersey. I'll tell you a whole story about that. But my grandmother, not this grandmother, but my dad's mother and father, they moved to a house up in Buckingham, and that was a really cool custom built house. And that house had the Ronson Foodmatic in it. So that one is very near and dear to my heart because I just thought that was the coolest thing. It like came up, and that one looked almost like a can opener. It would come up, and the hub was in front of the control panel, while as the Newtone one, the control was here, and the hub was in the back. So we'll look at all of those. I don't want to give too much away, but thank you for spending time with me. I'm really sorry that I haven't had more videos. It's been kind of a rough holiday for me. You may notice the refrigerator is a little different. My refrigerator died a long and slow death. And unfortunately, my cat died a quick and sudden death. So I just really haven't been up to making videos. So there was a little hiatus there, but I'm back, and hopefully we'll get some videos out. Okay, bye for now, Kitchen Kings and Queens.